Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. So this video is going to go over about why velocity banking is such a game changer for landlords. So I'm going to ask you a question. Do you prefer to have 9 houses and in each of those 9 houses you get $200 of cash flow and it might take a couple of years to build those 9 houses? Or would you prefer to get one house and you get $1,700 of cash flow and it takes you about the same amount of time to get that one house and you get a lot of equity with it, right? So if you have 9 houses, you might have a lot of risk because you have a lot of debt tied to those houses, whereas with this one house, you only have to manage one tenant and you might have free and clear property. I'm going to tell you what I would think. I would certainly prefer number two because I don't want to have to deal with 9 tenants and a lot of debt, right? But if you ever look at the internet, right, especially on bigger pockets, they kind of promoted this strategy, which is called BRRRR: buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. And the refinance part is like take all your equity, and so your first house that you repaired now is like leveraged to the hilt, and then you get the second house, buy it at a discount, repair it, and then leverage that one over and over again. So you get 9 houses, $200 of cash flow, and then now you have to like manage 9 tenants, right? Now here's a crazy thing. If you ever gone to biggerpockets.com, which is like the most popular website on real estate investing, they have an article about what is good cash flow, and they say that $100 to $200 a month is considered good cash flow, right? So you might take out like a $200,000 loan and only get $200 of cash flow. It's like it's crazy, right? Like you're probably better off going to law school or medical school for that $200,000 and making at least 10 grand a month, right? Not $200 a month. And this is why it's important that we understand the purpose of rental real estate. So I'm not dogging on real estate. In fact, I have almost $400,000 of equity, even though I've only owned 2 properties under 3 years, right? So I'm really happy with the choices that I made. But one of the things I don't want to do is just get into a lot of debt with little cash flow and say, hey, I own now 9 houses, right? I'd rather just have one house, get the same, around the same in the equivalent of cash flow, and not have any debt. That's just me, right? And that I think that's why this is such a game changer for landlords because you could do so much more with just one house. Okay, and so here's the first thing that we want to make sure that we do in general. We want to make sure that we buy a rental house at or a property at a discount. So take a look here. I bought this property at the peak of the market, around $200,000, and the Zillow says it's worth about 330, right? And let's just assume that we got a $200,000 loan. Now, this is how the average real estate investor does things, right? Okay, so you get $200 of cash flow a month for 30 years, and we'll just say it's a $200,000 loan. Some of my numbers might be a little bit fuzzy, but we're doing cowboy math here. Now, after 30 years, how much cash flow do you get? 72 grand after 30 years. That's not too much cash flow, right? And here's a crazy thing. If you ever look at how much the bank makes off of your 8% loan, take a look at this, okay? $200,000, 30 years, 8%. The bank makes $328,000 in interest. And I don't know if you ever heard of saying that interest is rent on your money. So, in this arrangement, who's winning? Is it you or the bank? You're doing all the work, you're finding the property, you're managing tenant, and the bank just does absolutely nothing and sits there and makes about almost 4.5, we'll say almost 5 times that you make, right? And you're doing all the work, right? Is that really fair? I don't think that's fair. But that's the typical situation that your real estate investor finds himself, which is why most people hate becoming landlords because they're not effectively managing their finances of the rental property, right? So we want to figure out how to reverse the situation where the bank, yeah, we borrowed the bank's money, but they're not going to get 5 times more than I am as a landlord. That's ridiculous. We want to make sure we make more money. So we're going to talk about that and how we could achieve that with velocity banking and why it's such a game changer. In fact, I made a previous video that was very similar to this, and I was so inspired to make it again because I was just surprised. Like, as I was doing it, I understood that the bank made more, but, I just, a light bulb went in my head like, oh my goodness, most real estate investors think it's okay that the bank will make 5 times more than you just so that you can get this pitiful $200 a month cash flow. And I don't know what it is about the internet, but the internet loves promoting just getting into debt to so that you can buy more rental houses. And why would you want to do um, less with more, right? You want to do more with less, okay? So let's get into actual velocity banking strategy. So what is velocity banking? All it is a strategy to pay off debt using lines of credit as your main tool. So if you don't know what a line of credit is, all it is a financial tool to borrow money, pay back, use it over and over again. Like a credit card. Do you know what a credit card is? That's a line of credit or one type of line of credit, right? So in order to do velocity banking, we only need two things: a budget, which is our debt attack plan, right? We attack debt. Um, we get more cash flow, and that's like the name of the game: get more cash flow by attacking debt. Okay, and we need a line of credit as our main operating account. Now, I'm not going to go too much into this, but let's assume that we have a home equity line of credit available to us. So if you don't know what home equity line of credit is, all it is a credit card. It's kind of like a credit card tied to the value of your home minus your debt, right? So let's assume that the bank gave us a home equity line of credit at 55 grand at a 10% interest rate, okay? For the average American, they pay things that are a checking account, whereas for the velocity banker, the line of credit is going to be that main operating account. And we're going to assume two things. So number one, we have the same income, even though more income is great. And then number two, we're going to do the opposite of what Dave Ramsey teaches us, which is zero savings. And most people think this is insane, right? Zero savings? Don't you need 3 to 6 months? Nope. Because velocity banking is essentially throwing all of your money at debt to pay it down, right? And instead of savings, we're going to have something called a number called cash flow. Now, it's going to look very similar to savings at the beginning, but look at what happens when we move this credit card debt into that line of credit, okay? And here's the thing: we don't have a rental property yet, right? Because in my opinion, I think we need to be in a strong, very strong financial position, or as strong as possible, right? Before we get a rental property. Because what if your tenant doesn't pay, right? What if your tenant doesn't pay? Are you going to be okay? Well, we're going to be a lot more okay if we pay off our own personal debts first and we have some emergency reserves or lines of credit available for us to use if the tenant doesn't pay the rent, right? So if we're in a position where, hey, if the tenant does, uh, well, let me say this again: if the tenant doesn't pay the rent, we will be okay. We want to be that way. I don't want to be in a position where if I have the tenant missing the rent and I need to live off of his $200 a month cash flow, I'm screwed, right? I don't want that. Okay, so right now we're going to pay off all our debt, or as much debt as possible. And so let's move all these credit cards, which is $55,000 of credit card debt, into our $55,000 line of credit. So I think it's not a coincidence that this limit is exactly the same as the balance, right? So okay, here's a cool thing. Just by doing this simple debt transfer of these 4 credit cards, guess what happens to the payments here? Zero, 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 zero. So on day one, we went from 1,700, which is pretty good savings rate, to 3,500 without making more money, right? Isn't that crazy? Because the actual strategy is paycheck into the line of credit, expenses out, and after every single month, the balance is going to go down by cash flow, right? So the two advantages of putting your entire paycheck is that it satisfies the minimum monthly payment, and then number two, it's going to minimize the interest because the interest is calculated by the average daily balance. So when you put your entire paycheck in there, definitely going to minimize that interest or the average daily balance. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that velocity banking math. So we got to calculate the next month's balance, which is based on the previous month's balance minus plus the previous month's interest. And our next month is always going to be subtracting this cash flow number, so 3530.31. And then we're going to go ahead, okay, we're going to go ahead and take the average daily balance or an estimate of the average daily balance. Whoops, I don't want sum. I want average of these two numbers multiplied by the interest rate, 0.1, divided by 12. 10%, 0.1, 12 to get the monthly. All right, so we got this covered. And then let's go ahead and copy and paste this formula. And then we can see right here that in month 17, we got it completely paid off, this 55 grand, right? 17 months, 55K. Now we still have this mortgage, right? But this mortgage, I think because of the low interest rate, we're okay to not paying off. And we could say, hey, we're ready to buy that rental property, okay? We're ready to buy this $300,000 home for $200,000, but we're not going to accept this $200 a month cash flow. Okay, so this is what we can do. So let's go ahead and go down here and let's do this. Okay, so what we're going to do is get an investment mortgage for 200K at 8%, right? And how much is the monthly payment? What is the monthly payment of that 200K mortgage? It is 1467.53. So 1.1467.53. Okay, 1467.53. Okay, great. So now let's just focus on paying off this investment mortgage. Okay, so if you take a look here, if we're doing the traditional way, actually, let's do this. I'm sorry. So, okay, so now right here, our savings is pretty much the same as this cash flow number. So when you're at a point where you can pay off where you're going to pay off the mortgage, you have two options, right? And this is a very similar situation: $2,000 of savings versus this $2,000 of cash flow. What's the nuance here is the difference between uh, making extra payments versus using a line of credit, or, and I hope I'm making sense, what is the opposite of velocity banking? In this case, it's the desire to have savings, not necessarily making extra payments directly. Hopefully that makes sense. And if it doesn't, I'll go over another video. But let's do this. So let's just kind of estimate how long will it take to go from 200,000 to 190K. Okay. Well, let's take a look here. So if it starts off at 200,000 for this 30 or 8% mortgage, it's going to take us 5 years to get to 190K. 5 years. Now, one of the ways that we can easily pay this off with our cash flow is simply transfer, using this method called chunking or incremental payoff, 10K to the line of credit. Okay, so 10K to the line of credit. So let's say we move 10,000 here plus 10,000. How long did it take off to pay off that 10,000? 1, 2, 3 months. So 3 months, or would you rather have it take it 5 years, right? So we just rinse and repeat, do it over and over again. Now, luckily, we have this velocity banking calculator that'll be a little bit more accurate than I would. Well, all I gotta do is plug and play. So 20000, right? Not 20,000. As the original balance, 20000 as the current balance, 8%, because we're just have a brand new loan, 30 years. What is the payment amount? It's 1467.53, right? And then this chunking is how much do we want to move from the mortgage to the line of credit and the line of credit interest rate. And I'm going to kind of briefly go over this. So if I go over here, I just got to put in the information here. So 6,500. So 6,500 is the monthly income, and the expenses is everything except for the mortgage that we're trying to pay off, or the loan we're trying to pay off. So it'll be these two here. So 2969.69. So 2969.69. Okay. So the amount of money that we move to the line of credit, we could just move up to, let's say, 6,500 to that line of credit and see how long it's going to take us to pay it off. So about 6 years, right? So it's going to take us about 6 years to pay off this this mortgage, okay? But oh wait, I forgot to add the tenant's income, right? So think about this. Even if the tenant never paid us a dime, we would pay this off in 6 years, but we got to add the tenant's income. So that's, let's assume this is $2,000 a month. And then to get the net operating income, we assume that we only get 70% of that $2,000 a month. And so it's going to actually take us 4 years. So if the tenant never pays us a dime, it's going to take us 6 years. Whereas if we do it with the tenant's income, which is ideally what we expect to do, it's going to take us 4 years and we only pay 33 grand, right? Isn't that crazy? That's crazy. So if we're doing the traditional real estate investor way, we got to pay $72,000 or we're going to get $72,000 of cash flow, and we will have to pay the tenant will essentially pay the bank $328,000, right? But let's see what the results are. So if this is going to take us 4 years, then let's say that we get 26 years of cash flow, multiply it by 1,700, because that's, we assume we get 70% of the $2,000 a month, and we live 30% for the expenses. And how much is that? How much cash flow would that be? So 26 times 1,700 times 30. Hold on. No, I did this wrong. So 26 times 12 times 1,700. Okay, 26 years, 26, 12 months, 1,700. Okay, good, I got it. So let's try it again. 26 times 12 times 1,700. Ooh, 530K. 530K. I like that number. I like that this number is bigger than the bank's number, right? So this is now VB, Velocity Banking, you, you, 530K, and what's the bank making, right? So let's go back to here. Oh, I'm sorry, to this Velocity Banking calculator. 33K or 34K. We'll be a little bit, we'll round up. 34K, okay, in 4 years, right? So if we're focused on paying all of our cash flow to that investment mortgage, okay, we'll have 4 years of essentially not taking out any money, and then 26 years, assuming we hold it for 30, of getting 530,000 in cash flow. So you tell me what's better. Do you prefer doing it the bigger pockets way, where you get $72,000 of cash flow after 30 years, or 530,000? And do you prefer to pay the bank 328,000 or 34,000? You tell me, right? Some people might say, velocity banking is BS, but in my opinion, this is a game changer for landlords, because I only had to do it with one house, right? And I could get another house and pay it off in, how long? So let's say that I do it again, right? I get the same $200,000, and then I get another, and all I gotta do is add this $2,000 of rent. Then the next house is going to take me 3 years. So maybe like in 10 years, I'll have 3 fully paid houses and I'm retired, right? That's such a crazy game changer, right? In real estate investing, it's always about getting, going into debt and getting the next house and getting $200 of cash flow. Who wants $200 of cash flow a month? Uh, you know, we don't want that. We want 1,700 because we have a fully paid off house in about 4 years, right? 4 years. Okay, man, I'm so excited about this. I can't believe how much of a game changer this is, and how the biggest real estate investing website says $200 of cash flow a month is okay for 30 years. Well, I don't know if it's for 30 years, but you're going to do Burr, you're basically going to be leveraged for a long time, right? And we're trying to get rid of our debt with the minimal houses as possible, so we don't have to manage too many tenants. Okay. All right. Well, this is Korean Atlanta Mentorship. So, just me, I'm making this video just because I'm amazed how much of a game changer this is for landlords. And I know several people who became landlords the past couple of years and regretted it because A, they don't know how to manage a tenant, but B, They don't understand why they have no cash flow and the financials aren't working out. And here's the crazy thing. Even if you do it the Burr way and you buy it at a discount, you're still on the struggle bus. Most people are. Isn't that crazy? Like you get a $300,000 for $200,000 and you're still getting this little itty bitty cash flow. But we got to pay it off and we get so much more. So this one house is essentially worth like 9 houses if you're doing it this inefficient way, right? Okay, well, that's it for today. And also, before I end the call, I just want to, if you're wondering where I got this velocity banking calculator from, I got it from Renatus. I'm full disclosure, I make money off of selling Renatus products because I'm an independent contracted marketer. But I learned about it from 2017, and not only do you learn about velocity banking, you also learn about real estate investing, financial literacy in general. So just a quick plug for Renatus. Okay, well, that's it for today. Have a great day, and we will speak next time.